Okay, hello everybody. This is 12:09 and we are starting in earnest. We wanted to give a couple of people some minutes, a couple of minutes to log in. All of you are muted. I will ask the speakers and the resource persons when they want to speak, you unmute. Just a couple of housekeeping information. All questions should be asked using the chat room. Somebody will be monitoring the chat room, specifically Dr. Imal Koye and Casey Oken will be monitoring the chat room to give us any information and read out questions during the question and answer session. Just briefly, Ozobo Development Union is an umbrella organization of Ndi Ozobo everywhere. And within Ozobo Development Union, under the able leadership of our President General, Peter Uzokwe, there is an arm of Ozobo Development Union called Ozobo Think Tank. So Ozobo Think Tank Group, headed by Engineer Emma Udedike and a host of others. I can see here Ij Okuma, who is one of the founding father actually of Ozobo Think Tank. So this program is being organized under the auspices of Ozobo Think Tank Group. And the essence of this is to create awareness among our youths about computer coding. As you can see, from all the things happening around us, you can't really escape, the use of your phone or the use of your computer these days. And everything around us is about computer coding. And there is a lot of wealth creation in that area. So at Ozobo Think Tank, what we do is to put on our thinking cap. I can see some of you with caps here, whether it's red cap or face cap, to think of ideas that can better our lives at Ozobo and Anambra State, Nigeria in general. So Engineer Mike Ukiwe came up with this excellent idea of having something like this to make sure that all Ozobo youth are aware of what is happening in the world. A lot of us are using Zoom. This Zoom that we are now in is actually as a result of computer coding. And the guys who created it, they're billionaires now with a B. The WhatsApp that we all know, that everybody is logged on 24/7, was also created by two young youths. And they've just done it for 5 years before Facebook bought it for $19 billion. Again, with a billion with a B. So the sky is the limit for computer coding. And we wanted to use this opportunity as a first step, just to create awareness and kind of have a role model, because we have Ozobo youths who are doing very well in this area. And we were able to talk to these Ozobo youths. Two of them accepted, gladly, kindly accepted to be our speakers today. There are others who are also involved in this amazing new field. So today we're going to be hearing from them And just for your information, this is going to be at rudimentary stages. The discussion is not going to be high profile, anything. It's going to be elementary discussion of what coding is all about and what the applications, that way, even if, those of you who are old like me, we can introduce it to our young ones at home. If we are not in the mood any longer at that age where we can change career. But before we go on, I want to ask Engineer Mike Ukiwe just to say a word because this thing started with him. Um, he brought up the idea, pushed the discussion, and got it to this stage. So I want to give him just a minute or two to say something, and then we go ahead with Gozie Okenu introducing the first speaker, who is Dr. AJ Udechukwu. So Mike, unmute your, uh, microphone and just give us a word or two, and then we'll continue.
Oh, wonderful, Dr. Dan. Okay, no, that's you virtually summarize exactly what this whole Zoom teleconference is all about. I don't think I have much to add to it. You did very professional introduction. And
Please speak up so that they can hear you.
say what now?
Yeah, speak up. Go closer to your microphone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I said you did a wonderful introduction. I don't think I have anything to add to it than to thank every one of you and the organizers and the people that accepted to talk to us about it. So please, we are very grateful that we have you as Ndiozo, and then we have you as people trying to address us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. So, because thank you everybody, and we just wait for the introduction of the speakers, and then we go from there. And the moderator is doing a powerful, beautiful job. So please moderate. Thank you so much. My name is Mike Okeokiwe. I'm based in Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Gozie Okenu, we will call on you to unmute your phone and introduce the first speaker for us. I'm placing the bio of the first speaker, Dr. AJ Udechukwu, on the screen. Those of you on your video, you can see it on your screen. Gozie Okenu, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gozie Okenu. I'm a student of civil engineering at the University of Texas at Austin in the United States, and I'm from Ozobolo. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce our first expert speaker, Dr. AJ Udechukwu. Dr. AJ Udechukwu grew up in Ozobolo. He attended community primary school, Amakwa, Ozobolo. He then proceeded to Federal Government College, Enugu, King's College, Lagos, and finally, Suleja Academy for the Gifted and Talented, where he completed his secondary school education. In 1999, AJ graduated with first-class honors, BSc degree in computer science with economics from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria. AJ went on to complete a master's degree in computer science at the University of Windsor, Canada in 2002. Subsequently, AJ earned his PhD in computer science from the University of Calgary, Canada in 2006, where he was recognized as a Canada Graduate Scholar, the highest honors for doctoral studies. AJ started his career in consulting at Arthur Andersen, a global accounting and consulting firm, and later moved on to PwC, another global accounting and consulting firm. AJ has held many leadership positions at several Fortune 500 companies, including News Corp, Fox, Amazon, and Lowe's corporations. He currently serves as the Global Vice President, Data and Artificial Intelligence at Walgreens Boots Alliance, a leading pharmaceutical and retail company with more than 400,000 employees and over $130 billion in annual revenue. Dr. AJ Udechukwu is married and lives in Chicago, USA, with his wife and 4 children.
Thank you. So please join us in welcoming Dr. AJ Udechukwu, who is going to be our first expert speaker for this webinar.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Gozier, for the introduction.
So I've stopped sharing my screen, AJ, so you can share your own screen. Thank
Okay.
you.
Let's see how the transition works. All right, so first of all, thanks for inviting me, Dan, and for everyone for inviting me over. I had some difficulty trying to figure out the angle to take this conversation, right? Just given the breadth of the audience. But I'm going to keep it very brief, right? As a way of introducing the field. And in my, I take it that trying to demystify what really coding is and what we're really talking about so that it becomes a little bit more relatable. So I decided to start with this, right? It looks cryptic, but really it helps to really explain what programming or coding is, right? When you think about it, we speak languages, we speak Igbo, we speak English as forms of expression, right? Just a way to communicate. But then with computers and computing devices, you're really looking for a way to give them instructions, a way to communicate to the machine so that they will respond to the things that you want them to do, right? I tell people that coding and programming is not difficult, right? Conceptually, you're only trying to do maybe 4 or 5 types of things. You're trying to tell the computer when something is something. So you're making a declaration, right? When you see this object, call it A, right? That's one thing. Another way you communicate with machines is that you're trying to sequence things, okay? You're saying, okay, do this first, then do this second, then maybe now combine things after, right? So in this example, I'm saying, A is 1, B is 4. So then when you now tell the computer to do C, which is A plus B, it will give you a result. So that's another way of communicating to computers, right, in sequences. Then another way, you're trying to make the computer make decisions, right? If it sees something, then something. If it doesn't see it, then another thing. So helping the computer to make decisions, you're giving it instructions to help with decisions. And then another concept with programming and coding is really you're trying to make the computer repeat things, right? So that's really why you see a lot of automation when there are things that you want a machine or a computer to keep doing over and over again. For a human being, that could become tiring and burdensome, but you can instruct a computer to just keep doing it. It's a machine, so it will keep doing it. So these concepts really are things that you try to encode in different languages, and there are different languages. The same way in human language, we have several ways of speaking. So there are different ways and different languages and flavors for computers, but you can always start with the most popular one, right? Or the most widespread one. Learn that and learn the simple ways to instruct computers, and you're in the game, right? That's really how I look at it. And then broadly, if you're looking at, applications of computing, I see myself as an applied computer scientist, right? Because I studied computer science and economics. So I was always, on the applied side and looking at applications of computing to business, right? So I've always been combining those two fields. There are people in the computer science field or in the coding arena who are core computer scientists who are building the foundational work, right? I try to bring an analogy to, say, English literature, right? So there are professionals in English literature who write books, who write maybe about grammar or phonics or wherever it is, or who write fiction, right? So these are the folks that are called to the field. But start thinking about all the written material in English. The bulk of the written material in English is really about applied areas where someone will take their knowledge and then write something, right? So sometimes they're writing about a help guide. Other times, some people are writing about spirituality, about how to make it in business or how to manage your emotions or your psychological health. All these other things are still expressed in English, right? But really, they're transferring some type of knowledge. So that's really how it is also with coding and programming. There are people who build the operating systems that your phone is using, whether it's Android or iOS. So those are like the core people in the field, right? But then there are lots of other people who are building applications that just help you in your day-to-day life. Your banking application, right? The application that controls maybe your remote control and all these other things. So all these other people are doing applied work similar to me, right? So I've worked in industries where you're applying computing to retail, or you're applying it to when I was at Amazon, you're applying it to video streaming, and now I work in pharmacy, so you're applying it to drug dispensing and pharmacy automation, right? So you're basically applying the skills you've learned to an existing field, right? So there's room in computing, right, to accommodate different interests. You can be in the core, developing the foundations, or you can actually bring your knowledge, right? Whether you're in geology and now you're trying to build things that will help with, fluid dynamics and monitoring flows of the oil through the pipelines. So you can bring your knowledge, combine that with your coding skills to actually define a career for yourself. And so here I've shown two examples of some of the leading voices actually from Nigeria, who are really making waves. So you look at someone like Stephen Odaibo, right, on Dubisi Okekwe. So Stephen is a young man that he's a medical doctor. He's a retina specialist, right? I use this example a lot because, I especially out here in the West, a lot of Nigerians here and encourage their kids into medicine and some of these other areas. But I use Stephen's example a lot because he's a medical doctor, right? So he went to medical school, but then he also got a master's in computer science. He did his residency and specialized as a retina specialist, so really an eye specialist, right? But given his knowledge, because he understands computing, now even though he was practicing as a retina specialist, he also formed a company that really is taking his knowledge as a doctor and encoding it into applications that help. So some of the things they do, so if you think about people that have diabetes, right, at some point, they start their retina starts to degrade. I think you have retinopathic, sorry, I'm not a medical doctor, but there is the degradation of the retina, and typically you need to go in and see a doctor to check that out and figure things out. What Stephen is now building, or actually has built already, because that's already being used in some places and they're trying to grow it. What they've done is now build something where you can actually now use computers and machines to try and take pictures of your eye and be able to give that same diagnosis and evaluation that a doctor would have done in the past, right? So recently he raised, $5 million to help to keep growing his company. So this is a medical doctor who also learned to program, and then took his knowledge of medicine and his knowledge of computing and married them together to create wealth, right? He's one to watch and he's really growing, right? So that's one on this side. Then I showed another company, Zenvos, right? So this is Ndubisi Ekekwe. If you guys are on LinkedIn and all that, you know that Ndubisi is one of the most celebrated Nigerian inventors, you know, of our time right now. He is very prolific. He has several companies, right? Ndubisi is an electrical engineer. He went to FUTO, right, Federal University of Technology, Owerri, right? He went to FUTO, he came out as an electrical engineer, but he's also learned computing. And if you look at almost all his companies, he's marrying his knowledge of electronics and electrical devices with his knowledge of computing, and he's creating immense wealth, right? This is one of his companies that really is about data-driven farming, right? So a lot of the services they provide is how you can do farming in a more intelligent way, right? How do you put, you know, sensors and IoTs in your farm to know your soil sample and water levels, to know what to plant on your land, when to plant it, and things like that. And even also providing services like helping farmers to know pricing of goods in different parts of the country, when to buy, when to sell. So really he's created an ecosystem with Zenvos, but he has several other companies. Again, see that these two people were not like core computer scientists. They had knowledge, but then they learned programming and coding, and they could marry those two to create new wealth. Okay. And then at the bottom, I've listed some things, right? So some of my curiosity is just in case anybody has ideas and wants to explore things. You know, like in the US, you have commodity markets, right? You have all these indexes. I live in Chicago, so we have the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. A lot of the things that commodity markets do is understanding price flows, right? So I know that in Nigeria, for example, there are times when palm oil is cheaper and then you come into another time, palm oil becomes more expensive. Same thing with the goose, same thing with all the other commodities in Nigeria, right? And people know this, but imagine if you had an idea and you could get together with a bunch of people. I'm sure some people might have something similar now in Nigeria. It's been a long time I follow that. But where you can start tracking, you know, prices of things at different times of the year. If you have sufficient data on that, you can actually build an information service. You can build an application around it, and you can actually create wealth around it, right? Because if you could accurately know when to buy palm oil and when to sell it, and you can actually provide data to show people, you know, that this is the constant trend, that if you buy this thing 1,000 Naira in March, it's going to be, you know, 5,000 Naira in October, and you can show that constant pattern, you can actually create an ecosystem that turns into a commodity exchange or commodity trading. Same thing when you come to say IoT, right? So Internet of Things, these are all the devices and sensors. A lot of you have it, right? Your phone is some sort of that, but you know, many people now have sensors on their cars and GPS trackers and things like that. I'll put this example here because I have a funny story. When I started my first year in university, you know, I was trying to be an entrepreneurial Igbo boy, and I got an Okada, right, a motorcycle bike. And I gave it to some guy to ride for me in Ife, right? If you look at the numbers, it was meant to be a profitable business. But you give it to this guy, he will ride, he'll come back almost every other day. He'll tell me that the thing broke down and then they had to go to the mechanic. And so basically he made sure that I never really made good money out of that business, but it was never horrible enough that I would stop and just say, look, I'm going to sell this machine and stop doing this. But imagine if I had a tracker, right? You can get a tracker for $10 or something, right? And put there, and you put a simple application that lets you know when your motorcycle is actually moving or when it stopped. And so on your own, you could actually know what's going on. Now, imagine if you build this service for everybody that has a commercial, you know, bike or keke or danfo or lorry, right? So that they will actually, because you can basically put a tracker on say the tires of your lorry, so that you know how much weight they carried. Same thing in a bus, so they can come back and tell you that they were running empty forever. So you can do this for yourself, or you can do this into a service that you actually can now sell to other people. And it doesn't take that much to put a service like this together. These are things you can learn and actually build a service around. I just put this here as some ideas, right? I'm sure there could be people already in this space in Nigeria and maybe not, but just throwing ideas out there. Okay, then briefly, I just want to talk about, okay, so where do you learn to code, right? Some of us are lucky. I started programming, I think, in JS2. So I started in secondary school, right? We had a computer club and I took interest and I just joined and started programming. But if you're in school and that is not available, when you're in university or college, right, most universities and colleges would have programs for you to join classes in programming. And then there are also boot camps, clubs, all that you can explore. But the majority of people really just start on their own, right? You get a computer, you decide that you want to learn to program, and then you just start, right? There's a ton of free resources out there, right? I put Code Academy here because you can start from there for free. You know, and you can just start. Take a popular language like Python and then just start. Start with simple things, and then you would grow from there, okay? And finally, why do you really want to do this? Like I said, I'm an applied computer scientist, so most times, you know, for me and for many people, right, it's really, if you learn programming, it's a complementary skill to add to wherever you're doing, right? There are people that are doing polls and making lots of money by just predicting the US elections well, right? So that's you taking your knowledge of programming and how to encode information and trying to apply it to some form of politics. There are others that are geologists and they learn programming and then they're in oil companies, right? And they're applying it there. And I've shown examples of a medical doctor that also learned programming and has created new wealth by combining those two fields. And then there are many of us that are in business and we're combining our knowledge and growth in business with our knowledge of computing. So really, you can do any of that. So you can enhance your existing career. You can seek out employment where you just now focus on software development or programming, or you can do freelance, right? So right now there are several platforms where if you know how to program, you can actually, so if you go on Fiverr or Upwork, and even Andela is trying to do something like that in Nigeria, Andela is based in Lagos, right? They're trying to do something like that in Nigeria where they create a marketplace. And you say, well, I can render this type of service. You come in there, and if someone needs that, they come to you and you provide that service, right? So that's really my talk today. I meant this to just be as a way of just, you know, introducing the concepts. Feel free to reach out to me anytime, you know, reach out on LinkedIn. If you want to chat more personally, I'm open to that, right? And you know, we can take it from there. But so thanks for listening. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. AJ Udechukwu. Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. At this point, I just want to remind us that whatever question you have, please put it in the chat room. Casey Okenu and Dr. Emma Okoye will be monitoring the chat room for questions. And the only stupid question is the one that you didn't ask, as the saying goes, okay? So ask all the questions. In other words, there is no question under the sun that you can't ask. You know, how do I make money from coding? Yes, that's welcome. How do I develop WhatsApp and make $19 billion like they did? That's also a good question. You know, so please go ahead and do that. You know, while we'll call on Dr. Obidike Ikechukwu to introduce our second speaker, let me share his CV as well.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am Obidigi Kechukwu from Federal Teaching Hospital in Ekiti, that's Ekiti State. So I'm here to introduce our second speaker. Echezona Ikwezuma is from Umanyawu Egbema Ozobo. He's a senior data engineer for E-Trade Financials in Atlanta, USA, where he lives with his wife and children. Echezona has been in the field of data engineering for over 15 years. He studied industrial engineering at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka, for one semester in 1997 before he transferred to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, where he studied physics and astronomy for 2 years at UNN while trying to get into pharmacy. At the time, it was really difficult, and thus he changed his mind and transferred into mechanical engineering. Echezona studied mechanical engineering for 1 more year at UNN before moving to the United States. While in the United States, Echezona tried to continue his mechanical engineering at the prestigious Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, Georgia. The exuberant tuition scuttled that ambition, and he transferred to Kennesaw State University, also in Atlanta, where he bagged a BSc degree in computer science in 2005. Upon graduation, Echezona immediately entered into the exciting world of data engineering management. Over the last 15 years, he has had the honor of holding positions like the Extra Transform Load, that's the ELT developer, ELT integration consultant, data analyst, TSQL developer, senior data engineer, cloud data engineer, senior developer, senior analyst, data engineering, among a host of others. Echezona has worked in a wide variety of on-premise ETL tools and business intelligence platforms. Recently, all roads were leading to cloud computing, so he started to self-study cloud data engineering, and since 2017, he worked for several Fortune 500 companies in the United States, including Google Cloud Platform, Amazon Web Services, and Azure Cloud. And they are the 3 most popular cloud environments, and E-Trade Financials as well. Summarily, Echezona creates codes and applications that make data available to businesses and institutions. These data in turn are used as business intelligence to make informed business decisions and generate enormous turn-on in investment. That's the ROI. So, ladies and gentlemen, with stepping up, let us introduce our next speaker, Echezona Ikwezuma.
Thanks, LBDK. Thanks. LBDK. Thanks for that introduction. I think I should go ahead and share my screen, right? Can I share my screen now?
Yes, you can.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to continue in the same line of what Dan and AJ spoke about already. We're here to talk about creating applications, right? So, creating applications is like one of the things that is booming now in the world, right? Just learn how to create an application. If you create something like an Uber, you can make a lot of money doing that. Trying to get back to the beginning of my slides. Okay, here it is. Here's my information. You can reach me on Instagram with @Echezona, right, or Facebook with just my full name. It'd be nice to stay in touch so that we can keep like that conversation, like trying to, if you have any questions on how you can get into data engineering, just reach out. So it'd be nice to keep that thing going. I'm going to turn my video off because I want you guys to I want you guys to focus on what I'm talking about. Then after I'm done, I'm gonna turn back the video on. Okay. All right. So here we go. What I'm going to talk about today is I want to give you like an idea of how to create an application. I'm going to give you like ideas or the basics, the fundamentals of creating an application. And then from there, I'm hoping that the information I'm going to give you will be enough for you to go ahead out there and create your own applications, because we don't have to go to school to do these things. You can actually learn these things online. Most of the things I've been doing over the last 10 years, I actually learned it online myself. I did not learn it from school. So today we're talking about fundamentals of creating a web or mobile application. Web application would be like, an example would be like Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines, when you maybe or any kind of airlines in Nigeria, I'm sure they have a website where you can go in and book a trip, right? That's a web application. Mobile application would be like something like Uber. I know we have Uber in Nigeria now. There's some Uber in Lagos. So Uber would be an example of a mobile application. So today, I want to actually talk about how you can create an application that is like Uber. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so before I talk about that, right, we're talking about youths coming out of school. You need to learn how to dress. Like dress for this for information technology. It's always good to like have your corporate outfit, like suit and tie, like, and also learn how to speak the language, right? Learn the terms, like the terms that you use in the computing field is different. So when you talk the language, people will actually respect or believe you more. It will help you during your interviews. So while we're talking about information technology, right? In information technology, there is two different groups, right? Let's talk about the groups. Like you can be a developer, like somebody creating codes, or you can actually be on the business side, like business analysts, product owners, project managers, business, like stuff like that. You have to decide like what part. That's the first thing you need to do. You got to decide what direction you want to go. Do you want to be in business, or do you want to be on the technical part of it, which is actually creating the codes hands-on? All right. So once you figure out what you want to be, right, it's so easy to sign up for classes online. You can actually sign up for these classes online. I'm sure they have classes in Nigeria somewhere that you can go to. I remember that at some point, one of my family members started a computer school somewhere in Nigeria. I'm sure you can just attend to a computer school if you have to. If you can do that, do that. But if you cannot, there's free tools. There are tools online, and I'm going to talk about those tools. There are tools online that you can sign up for free that will actually help guide you to learn how to create these applications. So interviews, like when you come out of school, right? Well, you're in school now, but when you come out of school, you're going to have to learn how to do interviews. Interviews is something that is very important in your career. The better you are at interviews, the much easier it is for you to get a job. So now let's talk about the popular applications out there in the world. If you look at the list, right, on the right, somebody needs to be muted. Can we mute him? Okay, so on the right, you see there is MS Teams, there is Slacks, WebEx, Zoom. These applications, like we're using Zoom today, right? It's better. The much it will be so much easier for you to get a job if you learn how to use these applications. Look them up online. When we finish this presentation, the PowerPoints will be made available to you guys. You should get online and look up these tools and learn how to use them. When you just know how to use MS Teams or Slacks or how to use WebEx and Zoom, it's enough to help you get a job in the information technology field. Okay, so talking about the popular tools, you heard AJ mention Python, right? Python and SQL, you see on this list here, SQL, Python, React. These are like some of the most popular languages out there in the world now. So you can get online and just Google Introduction to Python, and you will get a list of free materials out there that will help you learn how to create Python codes. Once you teach yourself how to write, you can learn this stuff within like 6 months if you actually want to do this. And once you are able to learn this, you can also get online and apply for jobs. You just have to look around and see how to do that. You don't have to wait to finish school to get a degree before you actually start learning how to use this stuff. So I mentioned some of them. There's like ETL in the cloud. We'll talk about this later on, but like on the right hand side, you see I was talking about the cloud environments. The most popular cloud environments that you have right now, you have Azure. Azure Cloud is from Microsoft. You have GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, and AWS. These are the three most popular cloud platforms that you have out there. Cloud engineering is like taking over the world, man. If you need to learn how to do cloud engineering, you can go to YouTube, like youtube.com. At the end of the presentation, I actually have a list of sites that you can go to actually get some materials that will help you learn these applications. But moving on, right? Let's go ahead and talk about creating applications. We have two different kinds of applications, web or mobile. On the left, you have a picture talking about mobile. Mobile, like I talked about, will be an example, would be like Uber, right? Like, you know, Uber or Lyft, or like DoorDash, you know, like any kind of application that you use that is on your mobile phone. And then web is like, you know, a web page that you go to enter information that gets information back to you. Now, this next slide is basically just showing you the design of what application look like. Think about an application, whatever application you think about out there, it actually looks like this. This is what it looks like. There's a database. A database is where you store your data for your business. This is how you get your data back and forth to whatever application that you're using. There's an API. API, we're going to talk about it. API is application programming interface. This is how you communicate with your database to get information back and forth. So, and as I mentioned earlier, there is two most popular forms of applications that we have now is web applications and mobile applications. So this is a picture, right? If you ever want to create an application, this is mostly what your application will look like. It will have an API, like I'm going to talk about later on, and then there's a database that keeps all your data for your business. So let's talk about database first. Like I mentioned earlier, let's go ahead and create an Uber, right? Uber app. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what Uber is, right? So we're going to have a database that will store our data for the Uber app, and then we're going to create APIs. APIs will be what we'll use to access our database, which is what will actually make up the Uber app. Okay, so here's SQL, right? SQL, this is like database. So I was mentioning database. There's different kinds of data warehouses. There's most popular ones, Oracle and SQL. SQL to me is one of my favorites. We're going to talk about SQL now. You can actually go to Google, right? As you see on the screen, you can go to Google and download and install SQL Server Management Studio. This is free. Like you can install this application and look up on YouTube how to actually create tables, and it will basically like walk you through how to do that. I'm actually going to play some videos for you guys to see how to create databases. But here's a database. Here's the tables on the right? This tables is where you store your information, like the information, like for example, drivers, right? We're about to create an Uber app. For Uber, we're going to have like drivers or locations of where we're going to. So stuff like that will end up in a table. Let me show you guys. It's going to be a short video on how to create tables in databases. Stay tuned.
If you manage a team, you have to try Monday.com. Monday.com is a platform to track everything your team is.
Going to see how to create tables in SQL Server database. Open SQL Server database studio. Expand table, right click on it, click on table, enter column name, first name, data type, varchar 50, remove allow else check, second column, last name, data type, varchar 50, remove allow else check, first name, set first name as primary key. To save the table, just click on close button. Click yes, view table name. Click on your table saved successfully. Expand it. Click tables, right click on it, click refresh. You can see the student table. Expand it. Here you can see the columns. First name, last name. So you can see the keys. If you want to enter the data into the table, select the table, right click on it, edit top 200 rows. Sorry. Click close button to save the data. Now you will see the saved data. Right click on its table name, select top 1000 rows. Here we can see the.
Okay, guys, can you hear me? So basically, like, I wanted to stop here. What we're talking about is database. How do you create tables? We're talking about creating an Uber. We're trying to create an Uber app. For Uber app, we need to have drivers, right? We have to have drivers. We have to have locations. We need to have a data warehouse that has all the locations in any location that we want our Uber drivers to be able to go to. We need to have a list of all those locations. So we need to store that in a database. So what we just talking about, what we just showed you is how to create tables and how to insert data in that table. Like I mentioned earlier, you can actually go to Google and download this tool that we're looking at. This tool that we're looking at is SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. You can download this and learn how to use this to create tables, manage databases. If you actually learn how to just write SQL queries and create databases, if you become a pro at this, you can actually get a job just doing this. At some point in my career, this was all I was doing for about a year or two. So get online and look for it. So let's move on to the next thing here. Let's see. Okay, so back to our PowerPoint. We were at, okay. So we talked about databases, right? And I wanted to give you guys a picture of what that database is going to look like. If you look right here, database, it has the tables. As I mentioned, you have to have drivers in your tables. You have to have a location. So this how it's going to be about. I talked about API. We're going to talk about API-ness, right? So API, what API is actually is just an interface for you to talk to your data warehouse. Like for example, you go to a web or you go to Uber and you enter destination. Like I want to go to an airport. So you give it the name of the airport that you're going to, that's destination. As you can see on the screen on your left, right? The API sends destination to the database. The database receives the destination and it looks for the drivers in that database to see who is available. Once the database finishes doing that process, it will send the name of the driver and the vehicle back to the interface, the API. So basically what you get from your Uber app is you enter a destination on the left and you get a driver back into your Uber app. That's basically the basic design of the application. So here I talked about SQL before. You can look up SQL queries on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and type in introduction to SQL queries, and you can actually start learning SQL. I learned SQL in college, but I've met a lot of people that actually learn SQL without going to school. So this is a very simple select statement, and basically it's simple English. Like if you actually look through SQL, most of what you see in SQL is going to be simple English. Like if you look at the select top 1000, first name, last name, report from report, right? From report. So basically like report is a table and you're selecting like all these fields that were mentioned from that table. Okay. So I've talked about API. So I've given you guys like I keep saying, for you to create an application, you need two things. You need to do two things mainly. You need to have a database and you need to have APIs. A database is where you store all the information for your business, where you store all your operational data, like the information you need to do your business with. Let's say, for example, somebody in Lagos has maybe a computer shop. You have a computer shop and you have a whole bunch of different items, right, in your computer shop. Your database will have a list of all the items that is in your computer shop. The reason why it needs to have that list is it'll be easier for you to go to your database and look for the items that you have in your shop, right? If somebody comes into your shop looking for that item. So now that you have a database that has all the drivers and the destinations that you want your Uber drivers to go to, we need to have a way for your Uber app to talk to the database, and that's API. API, like I mentioned earlier, is application programming interface. The most popular API tool that is out there right now is Postman. I've used Postman for years. You can actually go to Google and download and install Postman. And also like MuleSoft. MuleSoft is another good one. I'm going to play you guys a very, very short video of how to create an API specification. So the way this works is you have a database that has all the data that you need for your business, and then you create an API specification. API specification is how you want the user, the person that is like trying to use your Uber app, how you want that person to communicate with your database. And that's what we're going to show you now. The application, there's different applications that you can use to create API specifications. One of the popular ones that I like so much is MuleSoft. Hold on, I'm about to play the video.
If you work in a team, you've got to try Monday.com. Go to Monday.com and manage all your team's work on a powerful platform that's easy to use. So easy.
So I'm going to go to.
By the way, I wanted to say that this is somebody from our continent, Africa. So and he's doing very, very well out there in the information technology field.
Nwa supermarket executive quiz on ife agha dịka nwanne ya. So since you created an account in the previous lessons, so we can now. Ụmụnne m biko, afụkwa m ihe na-ekweta maka meeting. Echi nwekwara ebe a na-aga na-eso m na one of the speakers. And the thing na-ebido by 1. Amara m mgbe a ga-eji ebido meeting. Na ebido by 12 na mma agakwana on my way going there. And the program I had got throughout tomorrow.
Ebu.
So.
Okay, Dal.
So just click on start designing at this point. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. 100. Perfect. So we are going to the design center. So learn that we design APIs using the design center. All right. So I'm going to create a new API, and I'm going to do that by clicking on create. So at this point, there is a number of ways we can create an API. We can create a fragment. We can also create an API specification. Now we want to create an API specification. So just click on create an API specification and then give it a name. Since this is tutorial 3, let me just call it tutorial 3. Let me call it the MuleSoft tutorial 3. All right, so MuleSoft tutorial 3 is name, and I'm going to click on
Echezon, can you raise the volume, please?
Yes.
OAS support Morphin Interactive Doc.
So for beginners, basically,
Okay.
it's good we use.
That's the highest.
Start with an API designer, and let's go.
That's the highest now.
Great. So at this point, it creates an API definition for us. So what we are now going to do, we are going to write the code to actually build this API. So we are going to write the API specification in a language called RAML. Now, you are not going to learn this language. You don't, unless you just want to spend some time learning it. So the RAML stands for RESTful API Markup Language, and it's a language to define API specifications. So this language defines an API containing both the metadata, the endpoints, and the data that the API is going to expose, as well as the data it needs to function. So I'm going to copy the code and paste it. We are not going to write it since this is actually a demo. So I'm going to copy it from where I have it. And also, if you look in the description box below this video, you'll see a link to where this code is. So I pasted the code, and at this point, I'd like to optimize this the screen. So now this code, I don't want you to worry so much about it, but I want you to take note of two things. When I pasted this code, it provided these two endpoints. So Design Center actually understood this RAML code and extracted these two endpoints. So
Okay. I don't want to bore you guys. I don't want you guys to go to sleep. So stay up. I want to stop it here. But I wanted to make sure you get the idea of what's happening here. If you look at the screen, what we're doing is we're creating a way for you to interact with the database, right? Okay, so if you look at the screen, where my arrow is on the right, API endpoints, you have products, you have product and product ID. So think about it. In my database, I'm going to have a list of products. I mentioned earlier, products, right? For somebody that is in Lagos selling, like my younger brother, he sells computer items, at the store in Computer Village, and they have a lot of things from China. So in that, for him, if he wants to start a database, his database will have a list of all the products, all the items, okay? We'll have a list of all the items that he sells in his stores, right? So after somebody needs to be unmuted. Somebody needs to be muted. After you have a database that has, can you mute him, Dan? Okay, so after you have a database that has a list of all the items, right? All the products that you want to sell from your shop. Now, how do you access that database? Okay, that's what we're talking about here. Like, okay, so how can I have a customer go to a website and say, I'm looking for a video camera, a particular video camera from your store? How can a customer go to a web page and say, I'm looking for that video camera? Does this store in Lagos, does that store have that camera? Okay, so this API is called API endpoint. This is how the customer from the website will now, this is the way the computer will receive that message, right? So look at it, products, product ID. I'm gonna stop here. I think I've talked about this enough. But now let's go ahead and talk about the last part of this, right? So we're talking about API. I mentioned earlier, you can go to go to Google and find Postman or MuleSoft. This is free. You can actually sign up for this for free. Postman is free to use. MuleSoft will actually give you like a 30-day free trial. So you can actually use that 30-day to navigate through it and understand it. Okay, so we talked about API call. This is how API works. This is API basically is the middle ground between the user and the computer. Okay, so I mentioned Postman. What you see here is a Postman on the left, right? So when you download Postman online, this is what this is what it looks like, right? So let's say, for example, I want to load a record. Somebody needs to be muted. Dan. Okay, thank you. So let's say I want to like on the right, what this postman call is actually showing is you want to load a record into a database. It's called post. There's very two popular API calls, call types: post and get, right? So get is like you're trying to get some data. I want to get a list of all the drivers that Uber has. So that's a get. It will be a get. But here we're doing a post. A post is how you actually load that data into the database. So post here, we're posting a project ID with a key number, you know, the 4-value 1000. That's what we're doing. So this is an example of an API call. Okay, so let's talk about the Uber app, right? On the screen is what it looks like the API will be doing. First, you see here, this is just API calls, moving around, interacting with the database. You see there's a destination and type of car, right? So destination and type of car is the first API call that we make to the database. Now that process starts up, go into the database, find first available driver. As you're moving along, okay, it looks through your database. So you have your database right here, which has a list of all the drivers, list of available drivers, right? So your process will actually look through the database to see if there's a driver that's available. So, and then the first thing that you do, now I lost my screen. Sorry about that, hold on. Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. So going back to the API, so like once it goes to your database, right, and you find the driver and the vehicle, the last thing that you do, actually, the Uber app does, is to send that message to back to your app saying the driver is outside. Okay, so I just wanted to stop here a little bit and maybe give you a little summary of what I've done. I've shown you to create an application that you need a database and APIs to interact with your database. I showed you what a database looks like, right? How to create a database using SQL, SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. So I showed you how to create a database using SSMS, right? And then I talked about APIs now. How do you interact with your database? You have all these tables that have a list of all the drivers or a list of all the items that you sell in your shop. How can you interact with your database to get that information? I told you it's API, application programming interface, right? So I talked to you about Postman, and I told you about MuleSoft. You can get online and get a free install download of Postman or MuleSoft and start learning how to use them. Okay, it's not that hard. You can do it by yourself. And then on this screen now, I'm showing you like an example of what API calls or API and a database interaction will be for an Uber app. So if you wanted to create an Uber app, it will be very similar to something like this, like the flow of information. First of all, you make an API call, destination, and you're looking for this type of car, right? And then your database does the work where it finds the database. Well, it goes through your database to find the driver. And then the last part is, once it finds the driver, it sends it back to your app saying that the driver is there. Now go check it out. The last thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about how you actually create an application using Visual Studio. Visual Studio is something that is very, very popular out there. Microsoft Visual Studio, it's a very old application. So if you wanted to create an application, it's like very, very easy to download a free copy of Visual Studio and actually try to create your first app by watching YouTube. If you look at the screen, when you open up your Visual Studio, it's going to actually look very similar to this. This is my screen. So the first time you open it up, it's going to look very similar to this. You can download this very, very free online. Once you open it up, you can create a new project. Once you click that, the first option you see on your screen is create a console app. You can actually create a console app, click on that. You can do a lot of other different things with it, but just let's create an app real quick. Next, you give your app a name right here. And just like that, there's a create button right here. Just like that, you create an app, right? Once you create the app, it gives you a window now to start writing your code. You know, it will do all that stuff in the background. But just while we're talking about that, I wanted you guys to watch a little video of quickly how you can create an app using Visual Studio.
And today, we're going to see how easy it is to start building our very first iOS and Android application directly inside of Visual Studio 2017. So let's head over to Visual Studio to get started. Here we are inside of Visual Studio 2017. Let's go ahead and create our very first project. Now, inside of our new project dialog, we have a lot of options from Android, iPhone and iPad, and even Apple TV and Watch applications, but we're going to start with cross-platform. And here, I'm going to select the mobile app based on Xamarin Forms. This will give us a shared C# backend for all of our business logic and a shared native user interface powered by XAML. I'm going to select OK. Now here we have a few different options, such as a blank app and the platforms that we want to target. We're then going to select .NET Standard Library as a way of sharing our code across each platform, and simply hit OK. Visual Studio 2017 leaps into action and creates 3 projects for me: a .NET Standard Library, my Android project, and my iOS project. Let's zoom in and take a little bit closer look. Notice here that I still have a full .NET Standard Library up top called app26, has all my dependencies and my shared XAML user interface. I also have my Android project and iOS project where I can write platform-specific code because you have access to 100% of the APIs for each platform in C#. But we're going to focus on the shared code in the .NET Standard Library. We'll first note that I have an app XAML, so that's where I can add any shared resources such as colors that I may be using. If I hit the little arrow drop-down, we'll see some code behind app XAML CS, the C# file associated with that XAML page. Note here that the application, when it starts, will create a new main page. It also has a few lifecycle events, such as on start, on sleep, and on resume. But let's focus on that main page. Here is the bulk of my application. I have a stack layout where I can stack different controls on top of each other. Inside of there is a label that says Welcome to Xamarin Forms. Now I have my Android emulator selected, and we're simply going to start the application. This will fully compile my application on my machine and then deploy it to my Android emulator. So let's give it a few seconds. Here we go. Our application has started up inside of our Android emulator. And what we should see when it's finished loading is Welcome to Xamarin Forms. Now let's do something a little bit more creative. Let's go ahead and add a button on here, and every time we click on it, it will increase the count and we'll display that to our users. So let's hop over to Visual Studio 2017 again. Now I'm going to come in and simply add a button. And here I'll get Rich IntelliSense showing me every property that's available. So here's text, and I'll say click me. Then we'll add a clicked event, and we'll say new event handler. This will automatically create the code and the code behind for me that we can implement. We'll simply finish that button element. So let's head to that main page XAML CS and the code behind, and here's button clicked that we just created. I'm going to create a local variable called count and set it equal to 0. And every time that button is clicked, we'll say count plus plus. Then what we do is simply say that we know that the sender is a button. We want to update the text. There it is. And we'll use some C# interpolation to say you clicked count times. There we go. Now all we have to do is simply redeploy our application. It'll recompile our application with all of our changes and redeploy it into our Android emulator. Here it is. Welcome to Xamarin Forms and a button that says click me. So let's go ahead and click it. There we go. Every single time we continuously increase that count. Now.
Okay, I think that was enough. Wake up, wake up. I hope you guys have not gone to sleep. I hope you guys have not gone to sleep. Okay, so I'm almost done, right? like probably like 5 more minutes. Give me 5 more minutes. Let me give you a summary of what we've talked about. That was a very, very good video, and that video is free. You can get that video free. There's so many videos like that online that is free. Look at what he just did. He just created an application, and actually after creating the application, he added a button that says click me, just like that, you know, and it was just that easy. You can actually get online and watch these videos and learn how to do this stuff without having to go to college. I mean, if you can go to college, that's great. But if you cannot afford it, you don't have to wait for college. You can actually go ahead and start learning the stuff. I just talked about creating an application using Visual Studio. There is so many different things you can do in Visual Studio. Look it up and figure out how to use it. And then I wanted also, before I finish this up, right? I've talked about so many different things, right? The way you succeed in information technology, there is so many different things that, you know, that there's so many different ways you can go. You know, I talked about APIs. I talked about cloud data engineering. I talked about, you know, ETL. You have to choose. First, figure out what is the best. On the screen, I listed a very, very, like this, to me, these are the top of the line tools that you have in the information technology world now. So if you learn and become an expert in one of these tools and applications, it should be easy for you to look around and find something lucrative that you can do from your home without actually having to leave your house. You know, AJ was talking about earlier how we are told to mostly become medical doctors. You know, it's funny because, like, and it's true, we are all raised to become medical doctors. We're told that, you know, growing up, medical doctors or lawyers or engineers. But to be honest with you, I will want my kids to actually only go into information technology. And the main thing I like about it is that I don't have to leave my house. You know, I have to leave my house for about 6 years now. So, like, you know, and it gives you a lot of freedom, you know, to do other things with your life. So to me, if you can get into information technology, you should hurry up and get into it, because at some point it will probably not be that easy to get into. So on the page, I have links to training materials, right? As I mentioned earlier, we'll be sending this PowerPoint out to everybody. You can go to these links and learn more about these applications. Let me talk about, you know, I want to talk about quickly, right, about stock market. You know, growing up, our parents did not teach us about investing in the stock market. But if you go online and look online, and you find that most people that are wealthy in America especially, are wealthy because they invest in the stock market. So I was like thinking, it's crazy that people don't invest. You should actually, you know, even if you don't have time or you don't have the money, I think you should always know about investing. Okay, investing in the stock market, to me, is the quickest way to make money if you know what you're doing. But you have to, of course, know what you're doing. My favorite ways in stock market is stock options. It's very, very simple. Simple idea. You're actually not buying the stocks. You're putting down a bet on the stocks. Look that up. And then also give a list. I gave a list of 2 companies that I've been actually following for a couple of months now that are very, very successful. Cloudera and Crisp. Crisp, as I talked about earlier, Crisp is a company that is actually changing genes. They're trying to make it possible to where you can edit genes before you have the baby. So, but generally what I'm talking about is stock market is something that we back home, Nigeria, do not talk about a lot. And we need to make sure that our kids know about this. Like, before we go to questions, I wanted to, again, like, give a brief overview of what we talked about here today. We said all along, this whole thing was, let's give our youths, right? Let's make it easier for them to learn how to create applications, right? So we are talking to you about just creating applications. You don't have to become an engineer, or you don't have to become a computer scientists, let's just think about how can I create applications. If you want to create an applications, like we said earlier, AJ mentioned before about 2 people that did not actually major completely in computer science. They were doing other things, but because they knew about computer science, they were able to create something that made a lot of money for them, right? So you don't have to think about the school, just think about applications. How can I create applications, right? You can look it up online. How do you create applications? And today I told you 2-3 things that is very, very basic to create an applications. The first one is database, data warehouses. You have to create somewhere where you store your data. You have to do that. Create an environment where you store your data. This is where you store your business data. Like I mentioned before, if you have a store that has products, right? You want to have a list of products in your database. And then the second thing I also mentioned is APIs. You have to have a way to interact with your database. APIs stands for Application Programming Interface. How do you interact with your database? I also talked to you about how you can use MuleSoft to create the API specifications, which you can now connect to your database. And then the last thing I mentioned was how to use Visual Studio, right, to create applications. Visual Studio is so easy to use. Like just get it online, go to Google, download it online, watch some YouTube videos to understand how it's being used. I think that's it. Dan, it's back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. That's a lot of stuff in so short a time. But I can tell you guys that don't think it's so hard because there is actually an Ozobo boy, 13 years old, living in New York, who is an expert in coding. And I don't know whether he's here or whether his dad is logged in here. But I can tell you that if a 13-year-old can do it, you can do it. So at this point, there are questions on the chat room. If you haven't asked yours, go ahead and ask questions at the chat room. Dr. Ma Okoye and Kenechukwu Okenu will be reading out the questions one by one, and then I give the speakers a chance to comment on those. And speakers, feel free to chime in whichever question that you want to elaborate on. So let's go for the first question. You just scroll in the chat room and then you read out the question and then give the speakers a chance to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. My name is Emmanuel Okoye. I will start by thanking AJ and the HSONA for these wonderful presentations. I think you delivered these very tough and hard to understand presentations in a way that a lot of people, I believe, will go home today smiling, knowing that at least they have learned something today. The first question here is from Dr. Igwemmadu. And his question is, how can I get started as a programmer to boost my practice as a specialist gynecologist? AJ or HSONA, any of you can take it.
Okay, so let me say this, right? So remember what I said, computer applications are there to solve something, all right? So think about the types of things that your patients come to you to ask for, right? So if it's in the US and all that, we have a WebMD, where maybe you have some question, you go into WebMD to try and figure something out. But in Nigeria, let's say you're practicing in Nigeria, I don't know where you're practicing, there might be some common sets of questions and things that people keep asking you for. You only have a limited amount of time in your work day or work week. So then how do you extend yourself to actually now serve more patients? How do you grow your impact and your influence and your market, right? So you can either choose to start encoding this information you have, this knowledge you have, right, into an application. You may do it yourself, or you can partner with someone who will be doing the technical application while you're bringing the knowledge. So that's just in practically how you can do these things. Or if you're really interested and you say you want to now learn how to build apps, I mentioned a few ways to get started. But the first thing you have to do is say, okay, what is it that you want to solve? Okay, what are the areas of opportunity based on your experience and your field? What do people ask you? Where do you see the gaps? Do you think there are people that would have really liked to come to you but can't quite reach you? Are there people who can't fully afford to see a doctor but may be able to afford a smaller fee to subscribe to your app, right? So that you give them, advice at a lower rate. So that's how I would look at it. Are there some common elements that you normally see that have ways that they can be prevented, that you can now build an application that will extend that service? Okay, so just throwing things out there on how you can start looking at your field and your profession and seeing how you can turn this into an application or a service that extends beyond your physical space.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. AJ. I just want to make this announcement that please drop your name, phone number, and email address in the chat room. We're going to form a WhatsApp support network for coding, so that all the questions and follow up, we can do it over there in case we don't get to your question because of time. But I can tell you, this is a first step to what we have in mind. There will be a lot of new stuff coming, and that WhatsApp support network will help us to make sure that we get into that. And Casey, you can read the next question. You don't have to mention the name of the person asking the question. Just tell us the question and we can take a stab at it.
Hello, from.
Next question reads,
Zoom meeting.
is coding and programming one and the same thing?
Dan, can you meet everybody?
It's the same thing.
Okay, Casey, go ahead.
The next question reads, is coding and programming one and the same thing?
Yes, AJ, I don't know what you want to add to it, but to me, I think it's practically the same thing, right? But programming might extend more, like programming might be much more broader, but coding fits into it. So it's kind of probably the same thing, yes.
It is the same thing. It's just programming makes it sound too serious, right? So the colloquial name will be coding, right? Because remember, I said these are languages, right? And depending on what you want to do, like Echezna showed, right? You can build an application or code an application without having to get into the nitty-gritty of everything. Someone else can build the blocks for you. Okay, think about building a house, right? You can decide and buy sand and everything and start building your blocks yourself, or you can go and buy the blocks and use the blocks to build your house. Eventually, you're still gonna have a house, right? So a lot of times when people are saying coding, it's really quick ways to get the same thing done. You're using building blocks, right? To get to the very lowest levels of those building blocks, at that point is programming, but you don't have to do that, right? So, but it's all the same thing, it's all in the same family.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Let me read out one question here. I don't have a job now. How can I learn coding to help me succeed?
We are
Any of the speakers?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, right? Like most of the stuff I've been learning in coding is probably like about 80% or 85% of what I've learned over the last 10 years is by free materials online. So I'm sure anybody that has internet in Nigeria, right, can go to YouTube, right? I'm sure they can. I haven't tried to go to YouTube from Nigeria before, but I know you can go to YouTube from Nigeria, and I know you can go to Google from Nigeria. So if you can go to Google or YouTube from Nigeria, you can Google, like if you look through the materials that I just showed, you can actually go to Google and say download SQL Server Management Studio, right? And you get a free download. You just click on it, download it. And the next thing you know, you can go to YouTube and say, how do I use SQL Server Management Studio? And you see a bunch of free training, like 4 hours training, like free training. They will teach you for 4 hours for free, like how to use that tool, right? And it's not that hard. I know Nigerians are smart. I know we're very, very smart. It's not that hard. Like people are doing this in India. A lot of people in India are not, I don't think they're going to college for this. They actually teach their family members how to use this stuff, and they come back out here and get a job. So I really think that you can go to YouTube, pull up how do I use SSMS, right? And it will walk you through a video how to use that SSMS. And we talk about, APIs, MuleSoft, Postman. So a lot of the stuff that we talked about today is actually free. They call it open source versus non-open source. So a lot of some applications are open source and some are not open source. The open source applications, basically, it's made free for the public to use. So you can actually go out there and learn how to, figure out how to use it. So whether you have a job or not, it shouldn't stop you from getting online and learning it yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. Emma, the next question, please. Dr. Mokoye.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Echesona, this one is specifically for you. It says, how did you make it in coding, having grown up in Ozoblo and went to school here in Ozoblo?
So I went to school. I started at UNN, right? In Suka, Suka, right? I went to Suka.
Yeah, can you tell us, Echesona, sorry, can you tell us about your primary school? Is UNN in Ozoblo?
No, it's not. Okay, okay, so primary school, primary school in Newi, right? St. Mark's. St. Mark's. So I finished here primary school in Newi. Wejewe Uturu Okigwe, Maris Brothers Nokigwe. So and then finished here Maris Brothers Nokigwe. From there, I went to Unizik, Noka for like a year. And then from Unizik went to UNN for like 3 or 4 years before I came to US, right? Like when I was at UNN, I was studying mechanical engineering for about 2 years, 2-3 years. I was trying to do mechanical engineering. I came to America and I wanted to also finish engineering because all our parents Nagwai, like, Nagwai, either you're a doctor or a lawyer or engineer, you know about it, right? So I wanted to finish engineering, but engineering was too expensive. So when it was too expensive for me, I decided to go to Kennesaw State. So I can just finish here computer science. So I finished computer science, not even thinking I was going to stay in the field. I was thinking it was momentarily until I had enough money to pay for Georgia Tech. But then I got my first job, and I just, the first thing you know, I'm coding, right? I'm coding, and I thought it was like, this is really actually cool. This is more fun. I stayed doing information technology for years, but like the one thing that made me stay in information technology and not run off back to engineering is because of the freedom that I have. I have to keep saying that freedom, not being able, not having to leave my house, not having to go into the office. I think having that freedom, it makes it so much easier for you to spend more time with your family. Also, like for you to also do other things. You can go to Nigeria, like for people that are here. I know, so one of my cousins, he actually is in information technology and he goes home to Nigeria and spends months there and still working from there, right? Because you can work from anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you. Casey, the next question, please.
The next question reads, what books does one need to get started?
Anybody, any of the speakers?
I don't think you need any books, right, to get started. My advice is, if you're, depending on where you are, if you're in Nigeria, I'll say, look at the market and understand, what does the market need? right? I'll speak about the US, for example. When people ask me, I used to tell people this, I say, even if you can't really get in deep into this, if you learned SQL, learn SQL and I'll give you a job. That's why I used to tell people, because there's always demand for that. There are certain languages or tools in the area that are very popular. SQL is very popular, Python is very popular, and then things like JavaScript. HF also mentioned React, which is a flavor of JavaScript. Those are very popular, at least out here in the US or UK. I believe there's the same thing in Nigeria, right? In Nigeria, there's a lot of application development. So if you're trying to pick something, there is no specific book. You can go to codeacademy.com and just start for free. They have lessons, they will let you practice. So you'll be able to practice some coding and then just see results. But pick a language that is popular, right? I don't quite know what's popular in Nigeria, but I think JavaScript and SQL and Python will be things that are popular in almost any country. So just get study materials on the internet. You don't have to get a book to get going.
Thank you, AJ. You know that computers are expensive. So somebody was asking whether they can use the mobile phone to learn coding.
Let me, when some of my classmates from Nigeria, when we gather and we make fun about how we learn to program, right? So when I was a computer science major at IFE, and then we had computer rooms and you had to book, right? You had to basically, you're on a ticket. You have to book to go in there. And so most of the time, you actually take a textbook, you read the programming, then you take paper and you write all your code and you inspect it and you say, okay, does it make sense? Because you don't have that much time with a computer, right? I think why I'm bringing up this example is that if you're interested, you can use your mobile phone to start learning the concepts. You can use paper to start writing it out, right? And if at some point you now want to test some things out, if you maybe now have a friend, a family, or maybe some of these computer centers where you go to, right? If there's a concept you've already read about, because a lot of things in programming is you see it written somewhere, you can just repeat it. That's the way to start learning, is to repeat, right? Someone writes something, a code, you can copy it and just repeat it. And then you can go to a computer center, right? And just repeat it. Just type that in an hour and then see what the outcome is. So that will be, I mean, if you don't have a computer and you don't have a way to get started, I'm saying, yes, you can still learn, but at some point you need to have a computer to use. Some of the things like Code Academy, I think, yes, you can go, because it's a website, right? So you can basically go there on your phone and still be able to type things in and see if you're getting the concept or not, right? Because it's a training website, so you can use it.
Okay, thank you so much. The other question is how can we follow up with the speakers for coding opportunities or questions that we may have along this journey?
I have my information on the first slide, I guess. The Instagram, email, Facebook.
Echezona, you have volume.
Oh, I was saying that I have my information on that on the first page. I have my information, like my Instagram, email, and Facebook is on the first page of the presentation. I guess we can send them to them, right?
Okay, cool. So to answer that question, just to support the answer that Echezona gave, our WhatsApp support network, we have our speakers as the resource persons. So their information will also be posted in there, so that you all can all, have it. And they're also ready to be mentors to people who are interested in learning coding or getting into the wonderful world of coding. So this is just a first step. We will follow up with you and make sure that we keep the fire burning. This is just, as they say in the Pentecostal churches, we're just sowing a seed today, right? Hopefully, we'll continue working hard to make sure that those seeds will germinate. Any other questions before we wrap up? Casey, any other question?
There was one question in the chat, yes. I'll read it now. So it says, where do people who have no scientific background start when it comes to coding?
Coding is an art and a science. It's not necessarily purely scientific. There are applications that are more for the creative types. I've forgotten, there's this young lady in Australia that her company just got valued over $1 billion. And what she does is helping people draw things, so basically you take all these pictures on your phones and then you're trying to do photo editing and all that. So I'm saying, look at your strengths, right? Figure out what it is that you are good at. I had mentioned that, look, most of the things written in English language is about things that people know, and they're just using English to express it, right? So if you're from the art, coding is just a way to express things to the computer. Figure out your strength, right? And then when you learn code, that's just a way for you to apply your strength. So you don't have to be scientific to relate to it.
Okay, thank you for that. One more, can we, Dr. Imoke, could you, one more question and then the rest we can answer them on WhatsApp. So we can wrap up.
I think some of the questions here are already similar to most of the things that the speakers
has been
answered. Yes.
Okay. Davidson, did you want to say something? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, good evening. I have some contribution to make.
Yeah, please go ahead. Make it brief so that we can wrap up.
Okay, my name is Davidson Nanjuru. I'm from Umonyago, Ugomonzobo. As regards to some people that are asking whether if they can code with a phone, yes, I'm not a professional, but I have started some class like this with some Ozobo, where I created a WhatsApp group. So for those that are starting, it depends on what you want to learn. If you want to learn about web development, there are some app you will download, like a code editor that will help you. Then from there, if you go online, like YouTube, as my brother has said, there are many tutorials there where you can download it. While listening to them, you'll be practicing it. Apart from that, there are another website, WS3 School. From there, you learn everything you need. I myself, nobody taught me. I started learning it on my own. And by the grace of God now, I have come up to something on inside of web development, not app development. So you know there are so many languages, depending on the one you want to learn. I started from HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So like my brother said, if you are on side of app, then that means you will learn Python, PHP, Java, and the jQuery and others. So for people that want to use phone, I am using phone. Even I am trying to do some tutorials with phone for people that don't know how to use phone to code. From there, they might learn how to code from that video tutorial. So it's 100% possible for you to learn with the phone as regards to that. But one thing you will know is that you will know the type of phone you are using, the capacity, because on phone, if you are not using the phone that have a high RAM, you'll be hanging sometimes, and it will make it difficult for you to go far. So as time goes on, though you say that you are creating WhatsApp group, from there you will be converting some certain things, some ideas on how to go about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to add something, right?
Please mute yourself. Mute yourself if you are not talking.
I want to add something real quick, man. Okay, so calling me here.
I'm trying to find out the person I'm on mute.
Okay.
That's all Kalamado.
Okay.
Jude,
Okay.
I muted him.
Okay, so I was gonna say that I mentioned earlier about the cloud, right? The cloud environments. I said GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, and I mentioned Azure, which is Microsoft, and I also mentioned AWS, that's Amazon Web Services. See, all those three platforms, they're online, right? You don't have to have a laptop. You don't have to have a computer. You can go to a library, right? You can go to a library. We have libraries in Ozobo or Newi. You have libraries, right? You can go to a library and you can create a free account. You can get on the internet and go to, like, Google Cloud Platform on the internet and create a free account. They will give you a free account to where you can actually go in there and read the stuff yourself in the library, right? You don't have to have a laptop or a computer to be able to learn it. So all three of them, it's actually online.
Okay, thank you so much, Echezona. Let me see. There is a question from, being that coding is so applicable, can there be instance where it can aid even the smallest underfunded business and organizations without breaking the bank? There are some companies that provide their software for free until the application is successful. But it happens to be, if it happens to be unsuccessful, are there any way to provide great programming and technology services for the have-nots? I think what this guy is asking here is, in the absence of resources, how do you really start? Which goes back to all the things that we've been talking about, that you can start small using your phone, connecting to free apps and websites, and linking with us. I'm so happy about the contribution from Davison, right there in Ozobo.
Yeah.
Right there in Ozobo, trying to make it happen for himself and for the people that he's helping in his classes. So Davison, we would really like to collaborate with you, link up with you, and see how we can expand it, because there are plans to start something at Ozobo level to make sure that there is a physical contact after COVID with individuals who are interested in coding. With that, I don't know if Chief IJI Okuma is there to say a word before we close. Can you unmute yourself, Chief Okuma?
Hello.
Unmute yourself, Chief Okuma. Okay, okay. Okay, Dr. Jude Mbemena, you were raising your hand. You want to say something before we close?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Kalamado.
Namuku. Good evening, Ozobo. I greet everybody. I thank God that we held this seminar today. And like it's been pointed out, if we do a feasibility study in Ozobo, we have all it can take to build a good hub in Ozobo. And what is the beauty of computer coding and code? The beauty is to enhance what we do. Like I said before, already our youth have started enjoying the endpoint. They are consumer. There are already consumer benefits of coding. like buying things from Amazon. Get it? But what we want to use, we want them to make money from it. Also, is almost technologically aware, but not putting our people in it for them to exploit it and help them what we are pushing for. So we have places we can create a hub that a transit, because like showroom, everything now is at the web and we cannot be left out. So it's just to appreciate all of us that like phone and computers are almost available everywhere and it's at a good rate. So like Davidson said, Ozobo is ready to accept what we are now preaching. Thank you and God bless us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Dr. Jerry Okoro, I don't know where you are, but it looks like you are going to lead us in a closing prayer here. Are you there?
Sorry, I think I want to speak on his behalf. He just left, said he was busy. So what just happened video on? He just left now, like some minutes ago. Then he promised to be back soon.
Okay. So you want to say something, then I will call on Ikozobo, Kenechukwu Udechukwu, to lead us in a closing prayer. Ikechukwu, you can say something, then Kenechukwu will lead us in a prayer.
Okay, thank you everyone. I think I feel privileged to be called to speak at this time. I would say that this is a good idea and I want to appreciate the organizers of this. And I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody. And I want to also say that I think it's high time we developed Ozobo more than Ozobo is. Just like my Oga said, Dr. Mbemena, Ozobo is supposedly aware when you want to talk about technology. So I want to sort of wish that this continues and that the subsequent meetings that we be enlightened earlier enough so that we will invite other people. And then I promise to use my organization to bring more people into this and to increase the awareness of this so that more Ozobo indigenous, especially the unaware ones, will get enlightened. I think one of the main reason for this to enlighten those that are not enlightened, and I think in doing that, Ozobo will get greater more than it is now. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let me say a word here, and then before we close, before Ikozobo, Kenechukwu Udechukwu closes it up for us. I really want to thank the people who have worked so hard behind the scenes to make this happen. Dr. Jude Mbemena, Engineer Mike Ukiwe, who started this all, Dr. Emma Okoye, and Obidike Ikechukwu, Casey Okenu, Gozi Okenu, and there are so many consultations, people who brought up ideas, and then a very big thank you to the speakers who are very busy people, as you can see from their bio. They brought out time putting this together, and also volunteering to continue to be mentors to people who are interested. So we give it up to Dr. A.J. Udechukwu and Echezana Ikwezuma. Thank you so much for coming to help us, put this together and give a very expert presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So we will call on Ikozobo, Kenechukwu Udechukwu, just a few words and then close it with a very brief prayer. And we are done. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Prof. It's a pleasure seeing Ozobo and Abiazi together. I am so excited. I think this is one of the I'm only interested because I want to acquire more knowledge, not because I intend to go into programming or coding. But I thank the organizers. I love the vision. especially Ukibe, who has been hammering on the coding thing for a long time in the OTT platform. So Tabubo, it's good we've started, and I believe that this will help in empowering a lot of our youths and remove them from the street. Having said that, let's have a word of prayer. Amen. In the name of God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Father, we thank you for this spirit of unity that has come into our town of Zob. We ask, Lord God, that this spirit shall continue and that the spirit of envy shall be removed from our community in the mighty name of Jesus. Lord, we pray that this unity that has been found among our brethren, that we shall reap the benefits. And we pray that the coding or the programming that we have started to learn, that our youths shall get themselves engaged. And that also through this shall be placed on the map, the global map. And that we all as a community benefit from it. This I pray in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Daruno. No, thank you very much. And officially, this brings it to a close. I will stop the recording now, but feel free to hang around if you want to talk. And feel free to log out, especially those in Nigeria. So this brings it to officially to a close. I'll stop the recording, and we can all chat if you want. Thank you so much.
Nigeria kita.